Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Defying Death at the End of the World. I'm Jamin Shively, and I'm here with my queen and love of my life, Queen Melianor. Welcome, Queen Melianor.
Thank you, Jamin. Love you.
All righty. And we love you all, and we are honored to be able to present to you this new program that we've been cooking up called Defying Death at the End of the World. And what do we mean by that? What do we mean by defying death at the end of the world? So I've got some ideas I want to kind of just sketch out for you. So let me shift over to the whiteboard and we can do that. And Queen Melianor, please jump in with any thoughts, questions, comments at any time. And I also, you're welcome. And we also invite you all who are watching to do the same. Jump in with any comments, questions, just type them into the comment section of the YouTube video. So defying death at the end of the world, what do we mean by that? Well, I've got kind of 3 thoughts at the present moment that I have in mind for what that means. And Queen Melianor, if you have others, please add them. And then y'all listening, please add yours. But the basis of this, so what's this end of the world thing? Basically, that's just kind of, a little bit of shock therapy for humanity, helping to wake us up and remind us that we're in a very dire situation and that extreme dire situations call for, at times, extreme actions. And so one of those is defying death, because we need to live. We need to live, and we need to make the most of our lives, however long they are or however short they are. And we need to pull off some pretty amazing things before we exit. And I just want to refer to the Social Club at the End of the World and Love at the End of the World is 2 other series along very much the same lines. So what do we mean by defying death at the end of the world? One point I mean is by making amazing contributions with the time that we have, because when we make contributions to life, to Mother Earth, to each other, those contributions live on, and those contributions in the fact that they live on, they defy death. So we defy death through contributions. And I'll be delving into one of the ways in which we do that, and that's actually through the way that we're using right now, this medium of recording our video conference, using screen share, whiteboard, etc. And I'll just put video and many other tools, including artificial intelligence, as I'll delve into. So that's one way, is just through contributions. And then another way that we can defy death at the end of the world is through, I'll just call it love and unity, coming together. All of us coming together as one united humanity and achieving some amazing things together. I'll just leave it at that, because what do I mean by amazing things? Well, we'll delve into that. And simply by achieving this degree of love and unity amongst all of humanity and Mother Earth, including the plant and animal kingdoms, oceans, etc., as we all come together and realize that we are all one, that we are all interconnected, that this is one spaceship that we all share, that is, once we achieve that, it's like we will have lived as one. We will have lived as one united kingdom. And that, in turn, is a way to defy death, right? It doesn't matter how long it doesn't matter how long we achieve that for. It matters that we achieve it, right? And then with that, we will have lived, and having lived, then we can move on in peace, or move on to the next dimension, or whatever. And the third idea pertains to making time stand still, because we might say, oh, we only have, months left to live, or whatever. given the planetary catastrophes that humanity has brought on. And so if that is a short period of time that we have left, to the extent that we can slow down time to the point that it virtually stands still, then within, even if we only have a few, several months left or whatever time period we have, we really stretch that out like infinite taffy. And we do amazing things in that period of time. And that, relates to 1 and 2 above. So that's sort of like, it's sort of like the culmination and leveraging as a platform, 1 and 2. So with that, shall we jump into it? And Queen Melianor, do you have any?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I really like what you're saying, Jamin, and what it does for me. I'm an artist, and I see things often through mythic terms or through stories. And the notion of the end of the world has happened before. This isn't the first time things have come to an end as a generation has known things, or many generations. And if you look at creation mythology, you will see that the world unravels after X thousands of years over and over and over again. And then it is rewoven into a new picture and a new creation. So I think it's really interesting, here we are at this end of world time that a lot of is happening also due to the actions that we have had upon the earth. But like in other end times, what's interesting is we're called upon to go inside and find the thread that we were threaded with before we came to the earth, and to find our purpose. And so that follows very well the line of your thinking, where what is our contribution? So by looking inside ourselves, we can find that contribution, and it's an authentic thing that we can bring out and collectively then connect these geniuses or gifts or our purpose together, which is an act of love. So it's bringing us together and connecting us, so we have unity, and then time stops. So I have that experience in my studio, even as an individual creating, where when I'm channeling spirit through me as a creative act, which is an act of love, all creation is love, then time stands still. So I think that this is the way forward. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I see that in terms of practical and in terms of the mythical and in terms of the shift that we're going through now, and collectively to create a new world with a new way of being and a new way of existing and thinking and acting.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful, exciting. So let's talk about the realm of contribution, and I'll talk about one aspect of that whole realm, and there's many aspects, but one aspect is that of a platform that we're in the process of building, centered on the concept of radical collective intelligence. So I want to talk about the concept. Now, I don't want to talk about the platform. I'm not even going to name it. But the concept is that we, through conversations that we have on recorded video conferences, like, we do a bunch with a lot of participants in a lot of different locations. And the point, if you think about the process of recording that video conference, it's really quite profound, because you're recording that entire conversation, what everyone is saying and what everyone is gesticulating or emoting, or facial expressions, tones of voice, what we draw on the whiteboard, all these cool things, all of that gets recorded. And being recorded using artificial intelligence, voice recognition technology, etc., we can then transcribe what is recorded into text. We're not doing that at the moment, but that could very easily be done. That's part of the plan. And once it's transcribed into text, that text can then be indexed, as Google has famously done, Google and others. And not only, but we can go well beyond just straight indexing. Because these conversations are made up of logical sentences, those sentences can be structured in terms of, the famous syntactic structures as pioneered by Noam Chomsky and their various descendants and evolution of that field. And using artificial intelligence, we can actually map what we say into these very logical structures, which can then in turn be mapped to taxonomies of the world's problems, taxonomies of solutions, and taxonomies of organizations, of individuals, of knowledge, of academic fields of study and their subfields and disciplines and topics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we can taxonomize pretty much everything, and we can use syntactic structures and sophisticated natural language processing technologies to map what we say to these various taxonomies. And what's powerful about that is, imagine, millions of us having conversations as we do, recording these conversations, right? So they can join this, ocean of recorded, transcribed, indexed, taxonomized, and mapped conversations all around the world. And then if you think of it kind of like this growing thing of broccoli, right? Where there's always new spuds spurting up and branching, tree branch style into new subtopics, sub-conversations, etc. And we'll do some graphical depictions of this in a moment. But if you just think of this whole universe of recorded and transcribed and indexed and taxonomized conversations, now imagine an artificial intelligence, matrix that weaves throughout this entire web of growing conversations, of growing threads, as Queen Melianor articulated. The artificial intelligence can help create connections that didn't exist before between various different threads. You can say, hey, out of these millions of conversation, here's like several thousand that are focused on geoshading, on cooling a Mother Earth through shading, such as thin film reflective materials, droplets. There are lots of ways of doing it, some of which are quite hazardous, by the way. I'm not advocating for those. I'm just saying, let's just say that several thousand conversations all revolve around geoshading. Well, imagine we have a whole taxonomy on geoshading that breaks it down into the different variations. Each of those main variations is further broken down into its components, into its major systems and subsystems and assemblies and subassemblies and parts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The artificial intelligence can help connect various of these thousands of conversations about geoshading, connect them together and help them work together to fill out and fill in taxonomies of knowledge pertaining to geoshading. And then these various different groups can see visually these taxonomies being filled out with information, and they can see where the gaps exist. It's like, wow, we've got this really great idea for how to, cool Mother Earth through thin film reflective materials deployed in space. We've got the rocketry figured out. We've got the satellite systems figured out. But what we haven't figured out is this one critical material science, issue, right? Well, then, that's a call to the material scientists in the global community to join specific conversations where we say, okay, here's the problem, right? Now, how could we solve it? Right. And just by focusing the spotlight on those gaps in our knowledge that are crucial to completing whatever solutions we dream up, this will just become this hyper accelerator for humanity to create better and better solutions. So I'm just going to take a pause. And Queen Melianor, I always invite you to jump in at any time, but I'm also going to do screen share while I pause. And so we can draw some pictures. Okay, so we are right now focused on contributions, making contributions through video conferences and various other tools, including artificial intelligence. So that's what I'm going to delve into next. So contributions. And when talking about the video conferences, one of the many ways that we can organize these video conferences is into what we call series of conversations. So let's say a single conversation is represented by one of these rectangles, okay? And that's a recorded conversation, recorded, transcribed, indexed, taxonomized, etc. And so what I'm calling a series simply connects a series of these conversations on a given topic or a given set of topics, etc. Okay? So this represents one series. In parallel, there would be another series of, on related topics, perhaps. And, the big idea is that and now I'm just going to represent them as just solid lines. So each of these lines represents a series. And going from left to right is the dimension of. So these series are progressing forward in time. And as they move forward in time, the artificial intelligence discovers and makes connections, says, hey, you conversations are very related in these various different ways, and we want you to know about each other. Now, of course, human beings can do the same thing. They can use various search engines to find conversations that look interesting. But the real power comes when the artificial intelligence, the AI, that we engineer it and configure it to be very, very efficient at identifying as what I call, identifying gaps in our knowledge. Because you see, all of these conversations will be gradually filling in these various taxonomies, which I often depict as the upside down tree structures. You can see examples of this on other videos I've published on the same channel. But through these taxonomies of topics, we can identify where are the gaps in our knowledge. And then the AI can basically say, okay, well, what are the conversations which are closest to the gaps that are missing? And the AI can then identify, well, this conversation, this one, this one, this one. And then it can say, hey, you guys, get together and let's form a new conversation. So the AI is suggesting this. So the AI sort of becomes like this match.com of connecting people to come together to fill in the gaps in our knowledge, like with the geoshading example that I mentioned. And they can say, look, you guys, let's y'all come together with y'all and y'all. Let's form this new conversation. The objective of that is to fill in this particular gap that was identified, somewhere in the taxonomy. This is a gap in our knowledge. Get together and talk about this. And then the human beings, just like on Match.com, when you're happily connected with your other half of the orange, as the song goes, you're very happy. These people, who populate these conversations, I'll just represent them as black dots here. They will be very, 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 very happy to be connected with others who are working to solve the same problem that they want to solve. And they will happily get together and have this new conversation, right? And whoopee, we'll push into the future, and that'll probably become a series of conversations. And they will go, 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 girl, until they come up with the solution.
What I find really fascinating about this, Jamin, is that this is creating how the universe works consciously for humanity. The law of attraction.
Yeah.
And many others.
And the filling in of gaps, like nature abhors a volume, a vacuum.
That's right. And, how people attract what they think about and feel about all the time, you know, and manifestation of things that we focus on is what we act upon and what we create or co-create.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, totally. This is so exciting.
But it's a conscious action now, which is really timely.
Awesome. Now I want to show kind of like another view of this. And that is, imagine that we look at these. So you see this tiny rectangle in the lower left. Imagine here, instead of time going this way, right, as it was in the last screen, imagine now that time is actually pointing upwards, right? This is just a graphic, so we can make time point wherever we want. So time is pointing upwards. And imagine now that I show one conversation, another conversation, another conversation, and this becomes, in this view, sort of like a skyscraper where each conversation is a different story in the skyscraper, a different floor, a different level, right? And so the skyscraper just keeps growing as a function of time, adding new conversations to this series. So this is a series, okay? Again, on a given topic or a set of topics, or a series that's focused on a certain objective, and we'll pull in whatever topics we need to achieve that objective, for example. So now imagine that you have all these different series in parallel, just like we saw on the previous screen. But now with this sort of skyscraper view, the artificial intelligence can come in and say, hey, y'all and y'all and y'all, we need you to come together to create this new conversation, right, to fill in a specific gap, right? That's the one that we looked at before with the happy face, because, again, the participants will be very happy to have been connected by, I'm just going to call this AI. This AI, this artificial intelligence, is the Match.com of global transformation, right? Coming up with those solutions which will transform our lives, our world, Mother Earth, ecosystems, natural resources, et cetera, like geoshading, for example, like refreezing the Arctic, like holistic land management, et cetera. So the AI, this Match.com function, right, pulls us together and suggests new conversations and suggests which people should be invited to that. And so, like if we have one conversation here and another conversation there, and the two are pulled together to say, hey, start a new conversation here, using the skyscraper analogy, it's kind of like saying, at this floor of this skyscraper over here on the left, and this floor of this skyscraper over here on the right, they got together and built a bridge, a sky bridge, and then a new skyscraper. They started building a new skyscraper in the middle of that sky bridge, right? That's kind of I kind of like this skyscraper analogy, because these become towers of knowledge, and new towers can emerge here, there, and everywhere, Dr. Seuss style, right? And what emerges is this growing, Manhattan skyline, spanning all of the different topics that are relevant to transforming our world. And let's just take a quick sort of interlude into that space of topics, right? Remember, I'd drawn a picture previously about a taxonomy. So we have all these different taxonomies of topics. Right now, I'm kind of showing it rotated on its side. But, you have taxonomies of world problems like ocean acidification and abrupt climate change, et cetera. You have taxonomies of solutions like we were talking about, geoshading, holistic land management, cleaning the oceans. And then, you have various other taxonomies of, organizations and individuals, et cetera. All right, so we keep track of who our human resources are. We can have other taxonomies of other resources. But one very important taxonomy is that of solutions, right? So let's kind of blow this up a little bit. What are the different realms of solutions that we need to come up with? Well, I would say that the solutions range from, the planetary level, like geoshading. I'll put it up here because it's typically done in the sky. Cleaning the oceans. And then I'll just put holistic land management here, that we have oceans, water.
Education.
Yeah.
Reducing the population increase.
So I'll put this more human stuff over here. I'll put education.
Reduction in population.
So I'll just put population control. Right. Population control. It sounds kind of sinister. And I don't mean it in the sinister sense. Yeah, right. I mean it in there's just too many of us. Yeah. Numbers like crazy, and we need to get that under control.
And education is part of that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why we've got the two together. Right. And then, kind of more in the middle would be kind of more global level economic transformation. We need to utterly transform. Pardon me?
Compassionate.
Exactly. So transform our economy to a compassionate economy, an economy of healing and sharing, as opposed to an economy of hoarding and destruction, right? So, but that in turn calls for cultural transformation, because see, right now our culture says, hey, the bigger the house you have, the more cars and helicopters and boats you have, the more flights to Hawaii you take, the more attractive you are. Right. So we need to transform what we value as humanity.
And how we see success.
Exactly.
And cultural diversity.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Which goes back to love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love self, love others.
I'm just going to put love here as one big,
That's a big one.
Yeah. And so now imagine this whole plane that we're fleshing out here, right? I'm just going to sort of draw it conceptually as sort of like a big slab, right, with some thickness. So, and then all these topics exist on this platform. Now imagine that on top of each of these topic areas, we have skyscrapers growing. These are series of conversations, right? So on geoshading, all these conversations are happening, right? And then I have that example of pulling together these three different conversations to form this fourth conversation. Intelligence, the match.com of global transformation does. That's one of the key things it does. And then, but this is, so here's series of conversations about love, and conversations about population control and education and this and that. And so this is so you've got this whole Manhattan skyline of conversations about the solutions that we need to develop, that we can develop, that we can co-create, right? And before the solutions ever get built and implemented, they get the benefit of everyone's contributions through these conversations and series thereof. So we'll have this happening in the realm of solutions, like you see here in the middle of the screen, in the realm of problems, in the realm of organizations and individuals, just conversations galore. And with some really sophisticated artificial intelligence layers added on, we'll be connecting together conversations and people spanning various different topic areas, from problems to solutions to people to industries to existing products and services that can be deployed, existing organizations and individuals who can participate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the green layer, the AI layer, the match.com layer, really becomes decisive, because it becomes that thing that connects us all, binds us all, and suggests connections, suggests conversations. And it's designed by humans, and it's managed by humans. And so it's really a combination of AI and humanity working together to basically say, okay, how do we, this massive human resource of 7.38 billion people, how do we orchestrate all these people coming together and talking about the things that they need to talk about in order to transform everything that needs to be transformed, which at this point is virtually everything.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about a complete reset, reboot, reconfiguration, holistic transformation of all aspects of life, culture, economy, what's important to us, the stories we tell each other, the stories we tell our children through education.
Our relationship to nature.
Yeah, exactly. Our relationship to nature, our relationship to each other. Are we here to play this suicidal game of hoarding and accumulation? And the people who hoard the most are the sexiest and get to reproduce. And, give me a break. I mean, that's exactly what's killing us. So yes, we need to transform all of that. And what we're suggesting here is that the medium for this transformation is none other than, I'll go back to video here, none other than conversation. Yeah. What we're doing right here, right now. So we're walking the talk. High five for walking the talk. Yeah, baby. So this is what we're talking about. Exactly this. Just people getting together and having conversations and having the generosity, the courage, the pioneering spirit to do this publicly and record it and put it out there. Right. Right. And, and let's face it, it takes some courage. And I would really ask us all to be gentle in supporting others in taking that courageous step, right? It's one thing to challenge, right, what a person is saying. It's another thing to say, oh, Jamin, you look so stupid that you haven't shaved, and I don't like your voice. You sound too nasal. You sound too high pitched. You sound like a whatever. That kind of. I'm poking fun at myself just to make the example. That's really not okay, right? Well,
it's not very helpful.
That's it.
Everyone has something to contribute, so let's get together and contribute in positive ways.
Yeah, right.
And in creative ways.
Yeah.
Not in sort of mimicking.
Yeah, or making fun of or hurt. Exactly. So
it's unnecessary.
Exactly. So rather than, then give me input about my voice or my face or whatever. Instead, talk about, give input about geoshading and say, hey, I really think geoshading is a great idea. Let's think, or what, I think it's a terrible idea because we shouldn't be monkeying around with that stuff. Whatever. That's okay. That's okay. Because there we're talking at the level of ideas. It's not personal.
Yeah, exactly.
Geoshading wasn't my idea, right? But that's somebody else. There's a bunch of other skyscrapers of conversations that have resulted in our current planetary knowledge about geoshading, such as it is. What I'm saying is let's launch a whole bunch of new skyscrapers, series of conversations on geoshading so we can really push the envelope and really figure out really healthy ways to do geoshading, right? I mean, there's some very unhealthy ways have been proposed, and some healthy ways have been proposed. Let's focus on the healthy. But my point there being, I'm just using geoshading as an example. Feel free to disagree with geoshading, right? Feel free to put forward whatever ideas you have. And I mentioned we're working on a platform for this. Other startups and even big companies are looking at this. And we just need a planetary renaissance in collective intelligence, in coming together and working together to co-create all the solutions that we possibly can in order to, drum roll, how would you articulate our goal? Affect change.
And re-establish balance and harmony.
Bingo. Balance and harmony in our one and only planet that we
are. Our only home.
This is it. And, many will say inevitably, and this is totally fair, to challenge us in this way and say, oh, there's no hope, blah, 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 blah. I actually talked about this in episode 4 of the Social Club at the End of the World, and also in episode 1 of Love at the End of the World that Queen Melianor and I did together. Um, excuse me. And the main point is there is something that we can do. There's a lot of somethings that we can do. And Queen Millionaire, do you want to read a couple of these inspiring quotes?
I'd like to share this. It's a poem from Dear Human by Ramatulya Barry, and it says, "Together we are strong. Together we will raise our voices. We will stand strong for the only home we have."
Beautiful. And that's what we're doing. We're raising our voices together to defy death at the end of the world and stand for our home, stand for Mother Earth. Yeah. So, so that's all in the realm of contributions, these recorded video conferences that will be transcribed and indexed and taxonomized and all that exciting stuff, so that we can come up with solutions and then implement those solutions together. The second realm is that we talked about at the very beginning is love and unity. See, by coming together in this way and by being vulnerable in this way, right? By doing these recorded video conferences and putting the best of us out there. Number one, one of my main points about defying death is that by doing this, see, I get to do these beautiful brain dumps of the best that I've got. This is, this is the little drummer boy saying, look, I don't have food or money or anything like that to give, but I've got my drum, so I'm going to play my drum. This is me. This is us playing our, drum and whatever your favorite instrument, and just as a contribution to the world. And because it's recorded in a permanent, semi-permanent way, hopefully permanent, it becomes a permanent contribution. And by making these contributions, right, as the little drummer boy or whoever I am, I defy death, because once I'm dead, those contributions being permanently recorded and accessible, right, those live on.
Well, right? I'd also like to add, Jamin, that anything that we do or say or feel is an energy. And energy does not die. So it also exists and will continue to exist. So our intentions and of our thoughts and actions are really important. So if we're operating from a place of love, then that is the energy that we're emitting that will continue flowing through the universe. And that's where we've got to get to. We have to shift back into that consciousness.
Yeah, right. Beautiful. So, yeah, and I love what you said about the energy, because just by putting it out there, right, that's a contribution, a permanent contribution, because it happened. And by being among the first to jump into this new medium of radical collective intelligence and contributing to the universe are the very best that we have to contribute in a way that can be shared. Obviously the first folks who jump in and do this will be seen by many more people than people who jump in, say, 6 months later or something like that. And so there's a real opportunity to help pioneer this whole movement towards radical collective intelligence for the explicit purpose of global transformation, transforming our world to save as much life as we can, save as much diversity as we can, and transform our world from a dystopian hell of hoarding and competition and destruction of Mother Earth to a utopia.
Back to the garden.
Back Eden. Yeah.
Restoring the garden. Yeah.
Yeah. And with love and unity as our, our sources, as our guiding light, our true north, and that which really just, if we just cultivate that and nurture that and support each other in expressing that, I think we can just do something absolutely amazing in terms of this conversational realm, series and connections and AI and all that, and focusing, having this explicit goal of making our world whole again a whole world, a world of love. And so then on to the third point, and we can jump around and open up new topics as you wish, Queen Millionaire. But as the third point of making time stand still, right? Now just imagine there's millions of conversations, millions of series, millions of skyscrapers of knowledge going and connecting, and sky bridges connecting them all over the place. And the artificial intelligence, the Match.com is just having a field day connecting people, right? And with all this happening at super fast speed, what ends up happening is that, gaps emerge, gaps are identified in the knowledge, and then they're filled, right? And then the filling of those, complete certain structures of knowledge, of information that can then support yet other towers of knowledge. Well, now that we've got this figured out, let's use that as a platform, and what can we do from there, blah, blah, blah. So you can these millions can then become tens of millions, can become hundreds of millions of conversations. And then, where it's at, the new game of life is really, as humanity, plugging into this Torontosphere, this Tron of, of this conversational domain of infinite contribution, and saying, okay, AI, this is me, this is my profile, this is my education. I studied civil engineering, at UC Berkeley, and and then I went to grad school, and then I did this, and this, here's my whole resume. The AI can say, oh, great, you're needed here, 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 and here. And I'll say, well, wait a second, I can't be all these places at once. Well, here, we've got this, assistant that can kind of prioritize, and here, let's start you off here. And then I might spend 20 minutes in one conversation over here, and then the assistant will take me to another conversation over there. Of course, I'll be sitting, in front of my computer, like I am right now, like we are right now, and we'll just be traveling through space-time together to all these different conversations, which include people from all over the world, right? Mm-hmm. And that's just so exciting. And so as this happens, and as people are just kind of zipping from conversation to conversation, making their contribution when it's needed, and then moving on, right, to wherever else they're needed, that will cause the co-creation of solutions, of wonderful things, of wonderful strategies and ideas and platforms and everything else, and organizations and movements, right? Mm-hmm. That will spawn this renaissance, this creative renaissance, where so many creations will be being created so quickly and implemented so quickly that we will have this tremendous sense of fulfillment, right?
It's what you're saying is making me think of how the honeybee hives function. I'm thinking of honeybee democracy, how although they have a queen bee, they make decisions together. The queen doesn't make the decisions for the whole colony. There's this sort of unspoken or understood way of communicating and deciding what's best for the hive. And so my question to you is, once we are generating solutions and conversations, then how do we become that democracy together, selecting the best ways forward for any given problem that we're addressing? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, no, great question. So my thought is that the collective intelligence, precisely through having these conversations directed at answering that question, right? It's kind of a meta answer. I'm not giving you a direct answer. I'm giving you a meta answer. And then I'll give you my own direct answer. But the meta answer is that the collective intelligence will figure it out, right? My specific answer, which in turn is derived from the collective intelligence that is my network, since I've talked about this with a number of people, is this platform that we've kind of given code name Voice and Vote. And so what does that mean? So it means anytime anyone has any question that they want to put out to the world to vote on and voice an opinion on, they just put it out there on this global platform that everyone's got access to. It's totally public and open source and all that good stuff, and free. And then people can vote on any question that's put out there, no matter where you are, even if it's just like a local ordinance. Like, let's say here on Whidbey Island, somebody puts out there that says, you know, I don't think there should be any more deer hunting on Whidbey Island, for example. That's put out to vote. Now, one would think, well, only the people of Whidbey Island should vote. No, people in Zimbabwe, people in Siberia, people in Argentina can vote on that. You know, I'm sure there's groups that love and protect deer, just as there are groups who love and protect deer hunting, right, in different parts of the world. Let them all voice their opinion. And then Whidbey Island can get the benefit of all those voices, right? Some people will say, I think it should only be bow and arrow because that's more humane and this and that. No, 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 we should allow any kind of rifle hunting. Oh, well, what about this? What about that? Right? So a rich discussion would ensue. There's no end to it. It simply evolves, right? And the more contributions it gets, the richer the conversation gets, right?
So I have a thought about that.
Yeah.
That I think the problems that we're facing, they're on two different degrees. One is immediate, local, which is specific to a place, and the other is global, which is specific to the whole planet, of course. So anything to do with heating up the planet and abrupt climate change, what that brings to people around the globe, and then, but locally, I think it's a little different because the conditions are a specific way. The culture of the people, the way they inhabit, is particular to many different conditions in a given place. And so solutions maybe can only come from that. I'm not saying that it excludes other options from other people in other countries. But there's something about the immediacy of place and knowing place that brings solutions for a particular place, whereas the global issues like climate change, food management and things, although that can also be connected to a local climate and soil type, et cetera, and tradition, that this idea of this Indra's net, this kind of global connecting people together to find solutions for these global problems, I could see that working really well that way. But not, I don't know about on a local level. Possibly it's just a way to connect people locally, rather than globally to address a local problem.
Well, let's take the topic of banning deer hunting on Whidbey Island, for example, right? You know, what I'm suggesting is that everyone would be able to have input, but now let's say the governing bodies of Whidbey Island that have governance over this issue, right? Let's say they choose to only let the votes that come from Whidbey Island residents count, for example. Or they might choose that only a subset of the votes coming from Whidbey Island residents would count. For example, only those from residents over the age of 18. 6-year-olds would be able to vote on it, but the only votes that would count would be those of people over the age of 18, for example. Or Whidbey Island might say, you know what, we're going to count all the votes, 6-year-olds included. They're affected by the deer also. They love the deer as much as anyone else, right? Maybe even more, you know, with Bambi's bedtime stories and all that. So, you know, but you see what I'm saying? The local governing bodies, such as they are, or if we want to think even broader than representative, you know, bodies, simply have governance instead of government. So one definition of anarchy that I really love that Professor Guy McPherson articulated was anarchy. It's not the absence of rules, it's the absence of rulers, right? You know, who on earth is Donald Trump to be governing and ruling me and my life, right? Rules, yes. Rulers, no. And well, how do we make this transition from a world of rulers to a world of rules? Well, it's happening in many different ways and many different platforms. Blockchain technology is one, Zeitgeist is another. there's all these different ways that's being explored and developed. So it might happen just totally organically. It might happen through some political revolution that spans all nations, global movements. And the beautiful thing is all of these facets, all of these possibilities can be explored in, drum roll, conversation, like we're doing right now. So, you know, from this could sort of be like an Adam and Eve seed conversation that could spawn all these other conversations, right? Through taxonomies that we can all co-create. And so really at this point, I think we've kind of given people the flavor of what we're talking about. The time standing still part means that all this happens so fast when you have millions of conversations and artificial intelligence and people that are just sleuths and really good at jumping in, making their contribution, and then getting the heck out, right? Not getting all loquacious like I am, right? Saying what you have to say and then move on to the next conversation that needs you. Rather than talking the ear off of somebody who doesn't need you, talk the ear on of somebody who does need you and want you, right? And so at this point, I just want to invite everyone to jump in, and in your comments, please feel free to post not just text, but links to YouTube videos that you record.
Great
with
idea.
your own ideas, your own thoughts, whether they're branching off of something that we talked about here, like banning deer hunting on Whidbey Island, or something global like geoshading, or something totally new, like, you know, growing hemp, right? To replace, like we saw some nylon fishing nets on our walk on the beach just this afternoon here on Whidbey Island. And it's like, you know, wait, those don't decompose right away. Hey, this is all part of the, you know, poisoning of the oceans. Well, let's activate the hemp. The hemp industry is, you know, an example of the compassionate economy, and we're very proud to be working with Takuya Sato, our brother Takuya Sato, who leads the hemp industry in Japan. He is the hemperor of Japan. And we've had many conversations on recorded video conferences together with the hemperor as well. And I thank the hemperor for that. And this is an example of these global connections that are now forming. You know, we started out just communicating over the internet, the hemperor and I. And then we started getting together in person. I flew out to Japan with another colleague. The hemperor has flown out here numerous times and actually stayed here for months at a time. And we've had the honor of hosting the hemperor. So these are examples of connections that are all starting to form. We invite you to jump in with us. Let us together defy death at the end of the world through, drumroll, conversation. So we await your comments and we await your posted YouTube videos that you post the link to. Just going off.
Let's co-create together.
Let's do it.
Yay.
Thank you so much, Queen Melinor.
Thank you, Jamin.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
and
everyone.
Jump into the swimming pool with us. The water is warm and it's a lot of fun. All right. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Look forward to your comments.